Hey, it's Jay, and welcome back to MCU Reviewed. Now, this was a series that I had no intentions of stopping when I went on that little hiatus there for a second, because I love this series so much. And we have a new one to look forward to in Loki, which just released yesterday on Disney+. Now, I gotta be honest, when this show was first announced a couple years ago, I really had no interest in it because I thought that giving shows to lesser known characters like Wanda or Sam was a better fit because it allowed us to connect with them more. And I feel like we'd seen a lot of Loki, and he wasn't like exhausted or anything like that, but we'd seen enough of him that we could form a bond with him. Whereas Sam or Wanda, they were kind of just Avengers in these films. But now we finally get a look at who Loki is. And it's really, really interesting. Especially when I found out about what the show was about. And that was him taking the Tesseract in Endgame to leave the 2012 timeline. So that's what it focuses on. And that really piqued my interest, especially because it's like, does he jump back to 2023? Does he stay in 2012? I was very intrigued about the timeline placement. So the first episode came out, and let's take a look. It's called Glorious Purpose, which we've heard Loki say a million times, that he's burdened with a glorious purpose. We've heard him say that in Avengers and every other movie he's in, and even films he's not, and I'm sure he's saying it off screen. But it's very interesting because he's captured by these people called the TVA, who are responsible for keeping the timeline intact. And since Loki has, well, in basic terms, fucked the whole timeline, he's on trial for that. And yeah, so Loki, being Loki, tries to escape, but they use these, like, watch things, because Loki has, like, this thing around his neck that you can control him, and he gets, like, rewound back to where he was. So they basically have the power to control time, which is kind of broken. But he's put on trial, and he's obviously found guilty, and he meets with this guy named Mobius, who's played by Owen Wilson, and he basically tries to pick Loki's mind. Like, why do you do what you do? Why do you hurt people? Why do you kill people? What is the reason for all this? And, it's just shown that Loki doesn't want to do all this. It's that he has to put on this, mask of a powerful person who needs to fulfill this destiny that he always talks about. He's a king. And it's a very intriguing look at his past and what would be his future had he not taken the Tesseract. And it touches on some emotional things that you didn't quite think about. But I'll get to that in the review portion of the episode. But yeah, so he's in this TVA, and there are these guys called variants. That's what you're called when you break the timeline. So Loki is a variant. And Owen Wilson thinks that Mobius, but let's be real here, it's just Owen Wilson. He thinks that Loki can be used to help fight these variants, because there's one variant who is killing TVA agents left and right. So they need to really find a way to stop these guys. And he thinks that Loki is the perfect tool to do that with. That's not much else happened in the episode. There's just a lot of explaining what the TVA is, what their purpose is, the Time Lords and everything like that. There's a new character who's like that little cartoon clock on the poster that literally nobody knew what that was. Finally has an answer there. And yeah, it's a very interesting episode that it touches on some things that show how much power these guys actually have, because it makes certain objects that we are very used to powerless. It's very intriguing. So I definitely recommend you check it out, especially if you're a fan of Loki, if you're a fan of timelines, because there's some funny things that they do. Like, he literally was D.B. Cooper. If you don't know what D.B. Cooper is, he's a man who hijacked a plane for $200,000. And he even says it line for line, because I looked up the D.B. Cooper incident. He says the exact same thing he said to the flight attendant before he hijacked the plane. It's really intriguing. So it's like, is he D.B. Cooper? Is he just being inspired by D.B. Cooper? It's really, really cool. And we get to see a little bit of Loki's past, because he did it on like a dare from Thor and Heimdall. Like, they dared him to do it, and he did it. But, like, was that the real D.B. Cooper incident in this universe, I should say? Because the Marvel Cinematic Universe has manipulated real-world events to fit their narrative. Like, Hydra caused several conflicts in the past instead of, what we were taught in schools. So I'm wondering if that's the same situation here. But I can't really give much in terms of what I think because I'm still so intrigued by everything. And the big twist of this episode is Owen Wilson says that, okay, great, you'll help us find this variant. And the reason why you'll be so good at finding this variant is because this variant is you. And we see this pretty violent scene of this variant killing these TVA agents quite easily. But we don't actually see what this variant looks like. He's a hooded figure. So if he's saying it's Loki, is this really Loki? Is this variant because Loki did such damage to the timeline? I have no idea. But I'm very excited to find out. Like with WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I can't give a rating to the show until all 6 episodes have come out. But now I want to talk about, just the episode in general. And what I meant by the emotional things that they showed in this episode. You don't think about a lot of things, like in the Thor: The Dark World, when he tells Kurse, you might want to take the stairs to the left, that would ultimately end up with Frigga being killed. And Owen Wilson shows Loki that, this is where your path leads. This is your designated path. And, Loki just doesn't believe. He's like, no, that's not true. This is all an illusion, which he would know all about illusions. And it's interesting because, again, you also see Loki, he is in tears because he's watching Thor, this brother that he's had such a conflict with, since they were kids because, like he said in Avengers, he lives in a shadow of your greatness. Just see him crying that he's making amends with his brother, and just, it's really powerful. And, of course, Tom Hiddleston does a great job portraying emotion because you just see the shock, the terror, the pain, the betrayal on his face when Thanos brutally, murders him, when he just trusted him that same week with leading the Chitauri invasion in New York. So it's really interesting, emotional journey that this Loki goes on to see what would happen. And I don't know if it's for the good or for the bad that he saw that, because now there's no incentive for him to go back to the regional timeline because he gets his mother killed, he literally gets murdered, and it's a very interesting character take on that. Loki also brings up a great point when he's on trial, and he's like, why aren't you going after the Avengers? They're literally time jumping, because everyone else is blind as a bat during the 2012 time heist scene, but Loki's watching, Scott kick the briefcase and everything like that. He sees everything happen. And he's like, why are you not putting them on trial? But the TVA brings up that the Avengers time heist, that was supposed to happen. That was within the guidelines of the TVA. But Loki's escape wasn't. So that's where the difference comes into play. The TVA, I guess, approved this time heist because that's why they didn't do any interference or anything like that. But Loki also brings up during the D.B. Cooper incident, why didn't you guys follow me there either? And Owen Wilson was like, yeah, we've been monitoring you this whole time. Loki's a big deal there. This one guy, Casey, this one worker, he's like, oh my god, you're Loki. You're the plane guy. So he's a big celebrity with all his antics that he's caused with time. And it's really intriguing to look at. But what I meant with they make some objects powerless in this zone, Loki opens up a drawer to find the Tesseract, and there's just multiple Infinity Stones, multiple copies of each Infinity Stone, just sitting there in the drawer, and can be touched and can be held, and nothing happens. And, Mobius is in case he's people in the office here, they use those as paperweights. So in this TVA, even the most powerful things in the universe are rendered useless in this setting. So that's really intriguing to think about. The fact that these Infinity Stones that used to be feared because of what Thanos could do with them when he gets all 6 are they're just things. They're just rocks that you might as well be kicking down the sidewalk. It's a really interesting take, and I think that this show is going to be batshit crazy. Especially, it's been said by numerous people, like Kevin Feige and people who've worked on the show, that the repercussions of this show are immense, and I can't wait to see why that is. A couple of fan theories that I have that would be cool. They're not going to happen, but I think that'd be really interesting to me. What if Loki like ran into Cap, like returning the Infinity Stones? Because let's face it, he has to go back to that timeline that Loki just broke to return the scepter. So them crossing paths isn't that outlandish. I think Doctor Strange will most likely have some sort of a role in the show because, again, this show, WandaVision and Spider-Man 3 tied directly into Doctor Strange, so I'm assuming he might have some part in it, given his history with Loki in Thor Ragnarok. I think that it's going to be pretty insane in terms of like him bouncing back and forth to stop whatever this variant is. And there's a couple questions that I have from the trailer. There's a figure that we see who looks a lot like Nat from Endgame. So I know it's not, but why does it look like that? Is it another variant? I have no idea. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on. There was one more thing. I'm sure I'll think of it as I keep going. But this variant seems very, very bloodthirsty. But again, I'm just wondering if this is a variant of Loki since he broke the timeline, or if this really is Loki, just in an alternate universe. Because this confirms that the multiverse is a thing, but the TVA just makes sure that all those multiverses stay on the same path and they never converge. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Oh, there was one thing that I thought was going to happen that I would literally explode, because we all know that the Marvel TV series like Daredevil and all that never cross over with the movies, or the movies don't reference the TV shows, and the TV shows barely reference the movies, and when they do, they don't even use like the real names. They just say like a guy with a hammer. But they talk about Coulson's death, since Loki did kill Coulson, and I thought that Mobius was straight up going to be like, well, he's not technically dead, and I would have lost it, because that would be the first time Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was ever referenced in the movies. So that would have been cool. I wish that they went that route, because the sooner they stopped acting like those shows aren't canon, the better. Either make up your mind. Are they canon? Are they not canon? Make up your mind. I know I'm straying a bit, but I just had to get that out. I thought that would have been a really cool touch to kind of finally reference this show that was literally inspired by the movies. I can understand you not referencing the Netflix shows, but at least that one, why was that one never referenced once? It makes no sense to me. I'm hoping for a day where the Avengers find out Coulson's still alive. But for now, Loki seems like it's going to be a bonkers show. And I cannot wait for next Wednesday to see where we see our favorite God of Mischief go next. Because I think that he's plotting something. I know he said he's going to go along with Mobius to try to find this variant, but he's got to be plotting something. This is 2012 Loki. This isn't the Loki we've met in Ragnarok or Infinity War who's starting to go back on the path of good. This is still that, slimy bastard who started the Battle of New York. So he's got to have something going on up there that will betray, or maybe his betrayal will be put to the test. I have no idea, but I'm super, super excited for it. Stay tuned today. Yes, today I'm uploading 2 videos today, because I have a bit of a special announcement to make in regards to that cryptic post I made on my Instagram with that top secret image. That will be confirmed very, very soon. I'm actually going to start working on that video right as I upload this one. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And until next week, guys, that's a wrap. Forgot to do that. Haven't done this in a while.